This is Johnny with Tiger Bomb MMA, and tonight I'm going over UFC Fight Night Dern versus Yan, taking place at strawweight for our main event. I'm a little intrigued by this one because it's taking place in the Apex with a smaller cage, and with the smaller cage, it tends to favor the grapplers. So for the main event, I'm not going to shit on it like many people might, but overall, the card itself, there's a reason I'm kind of doing this fight review and prediction video late just because like my birthday happened on the weekend. I didn't really want to spend it doing too much MMA stuff. I was actually outside doing a lot of stuff, working out. So yeah, that's why you're getting this video late. But let's get started with the first fight of the night. I think it's going to be a banger while it lasts at bantamweight. Randy Costa versus Guido Canetti, and the odds currently have it in favor of Randy Costa minus 300, which is a no-no in my book. And come back on Guido Canetti is a plus 240. So right off the bat, Guido Canetti, he's 42 years old, the Argentinian. He's quite good in the first round. He's actually gotten a lot better over the years. Like his fight with what's his name, the guy who trains with um, Yanez. Let me look him up real quick because I forgot his name. Mana Martinez. His fight with Mana Martinez gave me a scare. I thought Mana was going to just run through him, knock him out in the first round, collect a paycheck, and dip. But it went all 3 rounds. It was a split decision in the favor of Mana. But Guido, like I'm trying to be as fair to him as possible because he's up in age, and I'm going to fade him in this spot. But part of me doesn't feel like it's the right move to fade Guido because depending on how Randy Costa shows up as a minus 300 fighter, I just cannot get on board with that. It makes me uncomfortable even thinking about putting him on a parlay, even though he's going to have the height advantage and the reach advantage. He's going to have the youth advantage. Of course, he's 28 compared to the 42 of Guido Canetti. Guido comes out like a ball of fire. He throws hard kicks. My problem with Guido and thinking he might be a good dog, it might be worth putting a couple bucks on him. I wouldn't tell you to do that though. If you feel compelled to do it, go for it. Taking the under for sure might go better. I think it doesn't go the distance. I think one of these two guys is going to hit the ground, and I think it's going to be Guido. The reason for it, despite his like finish ability, he can knock people the fuck out. He's quite good at creating those moments in the cage where he can land a big shot, but he does leave himself very exposed. I think Randy's just a much better fighter. I think he's much better composed in there. The issue with Randy, though, why I think the minus 300 is ridiculous. I don't know if his what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not the composure, but his confidence is there. I think the confidence might be gone because in that first round with Adrian Yanez, you could see a guy that like was confident in himself to the fullest that he can get anyone out there, like get anyone out of the cage, like get them knocked out and finish them. And then the fatigue started to hit in, along with obviously the punches of Yanez, and you just saw a completely different fighter. He was almost broken in that second round, and I don't know if Guido can do that to him because if they're going toe to toe, I think Randy Costa's got the better chin. He's been TKO'd twice in the last few fights, but it's more because of the fatigue. He just couldn't really defend himself. I do think Randy is going to knock him out, though. I really do think that. I do think it's probably safer to go with doesn't go the distance, or possibly if you want to take some plus money, Randy by maybe first round knockout. The kicks that he throws are just so damn sneaky. The way he was landing those on Yanez was impressive. He creates a certain pace in that first round. If he does so, if he goes out there and creates a very educated pace, puts the pressure on Guido, he doesn't like being pressured. Guido, if he's moving forward, he's dangerous as hell. If you can counter Guido's hard low kicks with maybe like a straight right hand, his jab against Yanez was looking very solid. And I just, it bums me out how he looked against Tony Kelly because Tony, we saw what happened to Tony against Yanez. He got put the hell out. Yeah, Randy for me is the play. I think he's going to be a little too quick, a little too tough in that first round. It just really depends on what Guido does. I think Randy might come out here a little bit more conservative, but more intelligent. He does have a much more intelligent mustache now, if you know what I mean. It's just he's looking good. He's a handsome guy. But yeah, I do think that Randy Costa is going to eventually land that head kick. Guido, he's very good offensively, but defensively, he kind of leaves too many openings that I just don't feel comfortable with telling people, hey, take him as a dog. If you're going to parlay it, though, doesn't go the distance for me. But for me, it's going to be Randy Costa. I'm feeling the 1.5. I think if he doesn't get him out there in the first round, depending on how like the first round goes, I'm a little chicken shit right now because I put a lot of money against Kosi versus oh my god, the cop, whatever his loser name is, and that was the absolute worst decision of my life. I didn't think it was going to go the distance. I thought they were going to go banging until one of them fell. It was the worst thing ever. So I'm a little gun shy when it comes to like taking the overs or doesn't go the distance. But for this one, I really don't think it's going to go the distance. So I'll go with Randy Costa round number 1. What I was saying is that over 1.5, I think it's safe. I don't think it's going to see the round number 3. So I'll go with Costa round number 1. Next bout, we've got Julija Storyenko versus Chelsea Chandler. Not Chelsea Handler. I'd fade the shoot out of her. Try not to curse on these videos anymore because, YouTube and whatnot. But Julija, she is a minus 115 slight favorite. It's a near pick'em. The newcomer, who's 4-1, I should add, is minus 105 at the moment. Let me see what the other odds have it for that one, if there's any other odds. They're pretty consistent. You could potentially get Chandler as plus 100 or so. You just kind of have to look for it. As we saw with Storyenko and Rose Clark, she's able to get that first round armbar. She can get that armbar really at any round. She's a very good grappler, but the way I've seen Storyenko is that she's these type of women fighters. She's a lady fighter that I think time has passed. She's very young still. She's 29, but her style of just being primarily a grappler and trying to go for that armbar, like at a certain point in women's MMA history, the armbar was like undefeated. People could not defend it. And I think she's still stuck there. And if you give her a certain fighter of a certain level, and honestly, I still think Jessica Rose Clark is a solid fighter. It's just that she made a boneheaded mistake and she got exploited again by that armbar. It's like she doesn't know how to defend it. Like everything else about her game is pretty solid, like the knees, the clinch. The IQ sometimes bums me out about her, but the armbar was there for her. Chelsea, on the other hand, she's 4-1. There are some things I like about her after watching a bit of tape. Like she's from Stockton, California. You should kind of get a feel where she's training out of Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So she's a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu last I checked. She's not bad on the ground. She's very aggressive. She throws hands. She is a 145er, and I think this one's taking place at catch weight. Yeah, catch weight 140. So she's not going to be out of the realm. She's not going to be depleting herself. Just 5 pounds. I do think Chandler is quite live in this fight. I know Storyenko has the much better record overall, even though she's lost to better people like Yana Kunitskaya. That's a good name to have on your record, regardless of getting your ass beat by her. Julia Avila, still like that experience factor, despite her losing to her and getting submitted. And then Alexis Davis, even Jessica Rose Clark on your record is not bad. In this case, she actually won by a submission. In Chelsea, she's been primarily fighting in Invicta and such, and not overly impressive again. She's not fighting big names, but she is winning. She's only got 1 loss on her record. She's going to be the slightly bigger girl, and she's going to have, that's about it. Nothing else as an advantage. It's same reach. I do think Chelsea, with her aggression, I think she's going to make very good decisions in there against Storyenko. Although I think Julija's slightly the better grappler, I don't see her getting that submission. I think she might get a little too overconfident in getting that armbar or trying to take it to the ground. And I think Chelsea's going to be a little too tough down there. Obviously, training out of Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, she's not a scrub on the ground. Anything could happen. Anyone can get caught. I just think that Chelsea's ability on the feet and her ability to grind against the cage, she's pretty aggressive with the hands. You can kind of tell that although her technique isn't there with the boxing, she does have some pretty heavy hands. I like the way she's throwing those punches that, like, if she hits Storyenko in the nose just right, she might start bleeding. Confidence goes down, starts making bad decisions. Chelsea, she kind of has that, like, bad bitch mentality type of stuff. So I'll go with her to win this one. It's women's MMA, so of course I'm not going to be betting it, but I think Chandler might be the play for me. If I were to take her, I'd take her as a dog on this one, but at the very moment, I'm not looking forward to putting money down on her. Next bout, light heavyweight, we've got Maximus Grishin versus Felipe Monstro Lins. Currently, odds are in favor of Grisham, minus 170, come back on Lins, plus 145. For whatever reason, I thought Maxine Grishin was older than what he was, and I thought Felipe Lins was younger than what he was. Lins is 37 years old. Maxine is 38 years old. And with this one, I didn't feel comfortable just going out and saying like what my mind immediately thought, which was Christian wins this one by a decision. I thought maybe Lins makes some proper adjustments. Lins, obviously being a former heavyweight, dropped down to 205, looked pretty good, looked pretty lean. But watching his fight again with Marcin Prachnio, I just kind of lost any confidence in him. The thing about Felipe Lins that worries me about this matchup, because I think Grisham is a very solid fighter. I think he's quite underrated overall. Like, I made some good money betting him against William Knight, and he just kind of showed how smart he is. He's a good grappler. He's obviously a really good striker. He was actually beating Jacoby up on the feet at a certain point. I always remember certain spots where I've bet fighters on parlays, and I remember pumping gas while having my phone out and seeing Maxine Grisham kind of land straight punches on Justin Jacoby, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose this fight. And luckily it didn't happen. But yeah, Maxine's a solid guy. Like, he's fighting, to me, I hate to say it, but a guy who's kind of past his prime, at least visually from what I've seen. With Felipe Lins, one thing I like to keep in mind, and probably why I'm staying away from it, is that he made his drop to 205 one fight ago. He might have been a little conservative in that fight. He didn't do too much. He kind of did the bare minimum. He did end up winning that fight against Prachnio, but is he going to let his hands go this time? Like, he has some pretty solid fast hands, good boxing, and he can connect on Grisham. Grisham's chin is pretty solid, though. He's fought some good people. He fought Tybura on Fight Island. I remember that vividly because I bet Grisham I think he was a dog. I can't remember, but I remember just seeing the back and forth, like, clinching battle, and how he was able to kind of keep his own with the much heavier Tybura. Dustin Jacoby's his last guy that he lost to. Yeah, I think Grisham's the play if you want to take him on a parlay. I just don't feel fully confident. I might live bet it if, say, Felipe Lins looks pretty good in the first round and kind of see him dip off a little bit. I'll go with Grisham because I think he can keep a consistent pace. And Lins, I'm partly worried about him because of that unknown factor of what if he comes out here looking better than ever in this fight against Grisham, possibly. But I think Grisham's a crafty vet, 32-9-2 his overall record. I think he wins this one handedly. I think he actually wins this one by decision. There's a possibility he can knock out Felipe Lins down the line, but I think Grisham's much more of an intelligent fighter. I don't think he'll try to put himself in risk of danger of getting possibly knocked out by Felipe Lins. So I'll go with Grisham by a decision. Next bout at middleweight, we've got Brendan Allen versus Christophe Jatko. This one's also very close. Minus 115 for Jatko. Come back on Brendan Allen, minus 105. Let's see if we can get any dog odds on either fighter. Let's see what Bovada has. Bovada has Brendan Allen plus 100, so if you're interested in that. But for me, though, I like Christophe Jatko. He is very underrated, I think. And I think Brendan Allen might be a bit overrated. They're both roughly the same size, 6'1" for Jatko, 6'2" for Allen, 77-inch reach for Jatko, 75 for Allen. And for me, Allen, he's shown glimpses of being a top guy in the UFC, right? Like, very good grappling, very good jiu-jitsu, very good striking. Like, he's all improved, but his chin is absolutely untrustworthy. Like, I even faded him against Sam Alvey because you never know. I took a small shot on Sam Alvey because I was afraid of Brendan Allen getting caught with like a counter left hand. And with Jatko, I think at this very moment, he's putting everything together very nicely. He's being more aggressive. In his fight against GM3, he was like trying to knock out GM3, take his head with him. And the thing about Jatko, he's a very good grappler. He's very hard to take down. He's a very excellent point fighter, right? He's not a spectacular guy. He's not going to get fantastic knockouts or submissions, but he's a very good parlay piece. because he does just enough for the judges, right? If this goes to a decision, I'm more comfortable betting Jatko. So if you were to tell me ahead of time, this is going to a decision, who you want? Who do you want your money on? Knowing that Brendan Allen has the firepower, I think he hits harder, he kicks harder, but Jatko is just so damn elusive on the feet. He's got the great movement. He is always in position to do something. So if he gets hit, he does two more things. Like he either throws a nice low kick or he blitzes forward. Doesn't have to land, but the judges just need to see that and make it seem like he's winning this fight. And that's what he's really good at, looking like he's winning a fight. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Jatko. I don't see any possible threat from Brendan Allen on the feet because he's not incredibly fast on the feet. Like he hits hard, but I think Jatko is just going to have the speed advantage. He's going to be piecing him up a little bit. And Brendan's going to be shooting sloppy takedowns. He might get one, but Jatko's very good at getting back up. Like if Misha Serkinov couldn't take him down, and I bet Misha in that fight because I thought he could. I thought maybe Misha coming down from 205 is going to be able to be the guy to get Christophe down and hold him there. Not the case. So I'll go with Christophe Jatko. I'm feeling the decision line, but I get a feeling he actually touches the chin of Brendan Allen and knocks him out. Like I just get that feeling. Jatko's just been a little bit more aggressive. If he lands just the right shot, I don't think Brandon Allen's chin's going to be able to handle it. So I'll go with Jatko using that two-inch reach advantage to find the chin of Brendan Allen. I'm going to say in round number 2, just because Brendan might have a pretty decent round number 1, and then eventually that speed of Jatko is just going to be too much for him. So I'll go with Jatko round number 2 TKO. Next bout at lightweight, we've got the return of Neto BJJ Joaquim Silva versus the body snatcher Jesse Ronson. And because I'm trying to be a little bit more less, or should I say less vulgar on here, there's some things I would say about Jesse Ronson that I will not say, but he has let me down quite a bit of times. Like I bet against him. I'm like, dude, just get beat, get decisioned, and take your paycheck and go home. No, I'm going to use steroids and choke out Nicholas Dalby after knocking him out on his buttocks with a nice elbow. And then against Rafa Garcia, I'm just like, Jesus, dude. Like he just did not look like any version of Jesse Ronson I remember. And he's 36 years old. Like I still remember how good Jesse Ronson is and can be, especially like fighting guys in the PFL at a weight class above him. Like he's a solid guy. He's got good skills. I just don't know under the UFC if he has the ability to perform. Like with Neto BJJ, he's been away for about a year. He got knocked out by Ricky Glenn. And frankly, those punches that Ricky Glenn were landing on him, they weren't incredibly hard, but you can kind of tell that they were having an effect. Like the first punch that Ricky landed on him was a nice counter as Neto came in trying to do an overhand. He just kind of got stiffed and dropped on the ground. And he was just kind of like giving him those like schoolyard punches in the face, nothing too powerful. And you can just see him kind of wobbling. So I do get the fear that Silva might get cracked from Jesse Ronson. Jesse's got a decent enough chin. He's a good striker. But I don't think Joaquim Silva being the much younger guy by 3 years, and even though it's only 3 years difference, I still see Jesse Ronson as a guy that has a ton of miles on him. Neto BJJ's 11-3. Unfortunately, lost his last 2 fights, but I still think he's just got the more physicality, more ways to win this fight. I think he's going to be quicker than Jesse. Jesse has to finish this guy, and I just don't see him being able to put it together to get the knockout or the submission. I don't think he's going to submit Silva. The chin of Silva is kind of a concern, so be a bit weary, but I do think that Silva doesn't knock him out. I think he finds a decision. I think he just does enough on the outside. He hits him with the harder shots, maybe takes him down, holds him there, because he absolutely needs a win. I'm going to go Silva by decision. He's 0-2 in his last 2 fights. He absolutely needs this win. Jesse Ronson, from what I've seen in the fight with Garcia, he's very capable of accepting his fate. Like, ooh, I'm losing this fight. Okay, maybe I'll come out strong in the 3rd round. No, you have to always fight. And I've seen him in there, and I don't want to accuse him of quitting, but I've kind of seen him, I'll put it to you this way, take the foot off the gas a little bit. Just calm down. I know there was some issues with his last fight with Garcia. I don't remember if he got hit low or what, but something sapped his energy. I'm not buying that. So I'm going to go with Neto BJJ by decision. Next bout, strawweight bout, Jessica Penne versus the Baby Shark, Tabitha Ricci. Minus 220 for Ricci. Ooh, no, plus 180 for Jessica Penne. I don't know how much I want to go into this one, but I'm liking Penne despite the way she looked against Emily Ducote. Emily chewed up her legs, nearly finished her on the feet. Baby Shark, she's very solid. She's a talented fighter, but she's 5'1" compared to the 5'5" of Jessica Penne. Despite Penne getting beat up in that last fight, she did some things in there that I felt were quite competent, especially with a shorter fighter. She was landing knees up the middle, and in the clinch, she was throwing elbows. I'm like, she still got it. She still has the ability to win. It's just that the girl she was fighting, Emily Ducote, just had more firepower. I don't know if Tabitha Ricci has that kind of firepower to attack the legs or to keep the lengthy Penne down without suffering any sort of like scrambles or triangles or whatnot. Like Baby Shark has the grappling pedigree, but so does Jessica Penne. I've seen this girl in Invicta live have some great scrambles with some top girls. I don't want to name them because I don't want to go into that list, but she's a good grappler. Is she done at 39 years old? It's easy to say fade Penne. It's just that I worry that Tabitha Ricci will try to jujitsu her way to a victory and it might not go well for her. Man, I'm afraid of picking Penne and her just being completely washed, right? Because she's nearly 40 years old. And Tabitha Ricci, she's got youth, she's got strength, but Penne is still, she's still dangerous, I think. I'm going to take a shot on Jessica Penne for the final time. Personally, I think Tabitha is just going to eke out a very close decision, but there's a fudge because I see that reach advantage 67 compared to the 62. It's too obvious to me that Ricci's going to win this fight. It's a women's MMA fight. Tabitha, she's a solid fighter, but I just don't think she's there yet. She's 7-1, and she's going up against a former champion. Well, I guess Invicta champion. I'm going to take the shot on Penne. I think she comes in here and she really fights her heart out. I think this could be a retirement fight for her if she wins or loses. I just kind of feel like, am I really going to take a shot on Penne again? Fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? I'll go with Jessica Penne by decision. I think she finds a way to win this fight. Like if she were smart with a shorter fighter, get into the clinch, blast knees up the middle, try to hit the head, elbow like she did against Ducote, because I just don't see Tabitha Ricci being able to control her on the ground. Like I know she did so with Polyana Viana, and I expected that to happen. To me, I think Penne's long legs might create a bit of an issue here, so we'll see what happens. But I'll go with Penne by decision. Next bout at heavyweight, we've got Alexei the Bow Constrictor Olenek versus Alir the Sledgehammer Latifi. Super hell of a hard fight to predict here because Latifi, 45 years old, 39 years old for Latifi. Did I say Latifi 45? Olenek is 45. Latifi is 39 years old. We've got the power of Latifi versus the submission skills of the 60, 16, and 1 of Olenek. It's crazy to think. Like I'm a big fan of Olenek, right? I don't think anyone isn't a big fan of Olenek. There's no one out there that hates this guy. Super fun to watch. He can get submissions out of nowhere. Obviously, the Ezekiel choke, the scarf hold. Ilir Latifi's pretty damn strong. And to be honest, like the last fight against Vandera, the last fight with Vandera, this is another guy I kind of want to go off on, but I should be nice. But Vandera had that fight won, but he decided to, as I like to put it, go full Vandera and lose the fight. I don't think Alir Latifi is going to put himself in any sort of danger in there. And I didn't even read the odds. He's a minus 175 favorite compared to the plus 145 dog of Olenek. Olenek, if he comes out here swinging sledgehammers, ironically enough, towards the sledgehammer, he can potentially knock out Alir Latifi. I think Alir's game plan has to be to knock out Olenek as soon as possible, right? Like if they get into any sort of scrambling ability, like I do think Alir can survive on the ground if he's on top of Olenek, but it's just too risky. So I'll go with Alir Latifi. I'm going to say maybe a second round TKO. I think he has to tire out Olenek, whether it's immediately, like putting him on his butt, knocking him out, or if it goes extended, if there's any sort of grappling. Man, it's just so tough, to be honest. Like there's too many variables on this one. I do think the power side has to come from Alir Latifi. He does have that power. So does Olenek, right? They're both very strong guys. I just slightly think that Alir Latifi is a little bit more durable at heavyweight opposed to Olenek. So I'm going to go with Alir Latifi. I'm just going to say round number 1, TKO. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised if Olenek gets a submission. Well, a little bit surprised. Like we would at least find out that Alir Latifi does have a neck. But let's move on. Main card. The opener, Mike Davis versus Slava Claus. I'm not going to go into his last name and all that crap, but Slava Claus plus 150. Come back on Mike Davis. Beast Boy is minus 175. Ooh, a boy. So this was supposed to be Mike Davis versus, what is that dude's name? Long, tall, skinny boy. Can't remember his name. The doctor. Is it the doctor? The surgeon? Uros Medic. There you go. So he was supposed to fight Uros Medic, which I thought would have been an interesting fight. Now he's fighting Vyacheslav Borishev, which is about the same type of fight, just slightly different approach, right? Slava Claus, he's a striker, very good striker, but he's not as lengthy as Uros Medic. And Mike Davis hasn't fought since he beat Mason Jones about 2 years ago. And he's still very young, 29 years old, 34. Vyacheslav. For me, this one, Vyacheslav is taking the fight very short notice. I think he's just taking a bite of something he can't fully chew right now. Sounds a little erotic, but I just think Mike Davis might be too fast for him. Like Vyacheslav has a chance, obviously, to finish Mike Davis. I don't see him winning a decision. I think he has to finish Mike Davis by attacking the body. It's just that Mike Davis, so like I faded him against Mason Jones. I thought Mason was going to use the judo, hold him down for a bit. Like I knew it was going to be a tough fight, but he took Mason's O, and since then Mason hadn't looked great. Like he's looked okay against certain competition, but he just hasn't looked great. Mike Davis is incredibly fast. He's incredibly skilled on the feet. Takedown defense is very good. Vyacheslav, I just don't see him keeping up with Mike Davis, and I do worry that he gets knocked out. Just because I do like Slava Claus. I want him to stay in the UFC. I don't like the idea of him having 2 losses in a row because that puts him on the chopping block, right? He's a very fun fighter. Like that body shot that he landed on Dakota Bush was absolutely brutal. And if he can land that on Mike Davis, odds are 50-50 that he gets finished because Mike, I think he's good enough to take body shots. He's a phenomenal kickboxer, right? He's been training in Muay Thai for a long time. His body's going to be conditioned. He's got abs. So I do think Mike Davis, being the faster guy, wins this one by decision. Being that he hasn't fought in 2 years, that does bring a bit concern. So if you take a shot on Vyacheslav, it's a possibility, right? But Vyacheslav, to me, he's just going to be a little bit too slow for Mike Davis. Mike is incredibly fast. He watches anime. So I'll go with Mike Davis by decision. Next bout, John Sexy Mexi Castaneda versus Daniel Willie Catch Santos. Currently, the odds are minus 224. Castaneda come back on Willie Catch plus 180. So this one, I was kind of concerned on this one. Like, how am I going to go with this fight? John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos. Like for me, John Castaneda, he's very good in certain spots, right? Like picking him against Eddie Wineland. I love that bet. Like I bet him like before the fight, and I live bet him as he was losing to Eddie Wineland. So I was like, I just had a feeling, more so a fade on Eddie. And then against Miles Johns, like I picked Johns originally. I'm like, John, he might be a little too fast, but I was still kind of like, maybe take a shot on Castaneda, which again I did. Like I hedged that fight. So Castaneda's a good fighter, right? Like he has the wrestling background. He's got the good solid hands and boxing. Willie Catch trains out of Chucho Box Diego Lima. I picked him against Julio Arce, and Julio kind of made him look like a scrub out there, like too slow. And I don't necessarily blame Willie Catch for that. He hadn't fought in some time. He hadn't fought in like 2 years, so his timing might have been off. I still think there's a lot of promise in Willie Catch. In this fight, though, I just think, despite my reservations about Castaneda, like again, he's a very good fighter to pick in spots. This one could be a specific spot where Willie Catch finally like puts it all together. I do think he's a very talented fighter. He's 27 years old, and they're virtually identical: 5'6", 5'7". The height advantage going to Santos Willie Catch, and I guess a 2-inch advantage in reach for Castaneda. For me, though, in this particular bout, if John Castaneda mixes it up well, which I expect him to, he's going to win this fight. Willie Cat has a way of potentially knocking out Castaneda if he lands something like a flying knee. He's a very opportunistic guy. He's a very aggressive guy. I just happen to see Castaneda, obviously with the more experience, fought much better competition so far. He's just going to mix it up well, mix his hands up with his takedowns, maybe not even control Daniel Santos, but just kind of create those moments that are going to win him the fight. So I do have Castaneda to win this one by a decision. If he can finish Willie Catch, that's going to be very impressive, right? I fully expect this version of Daniel Santos to look better than he has in a long time. Obviously, his last fight didn't look so great. Even if you watch tape on him in like the regionals, he's getting arm bars. He's a very well-rounded guy. It's just that like I do worry that, very similar to Daniel. Is it? No. This is Daniel Santos. What's the other Santos? Miojo, the guy at 125. Like he's very talented, but he's just not up to that level. We're gonna see if Willie Catch is at the level. If he can finish or just beat John Castaneda, who's a very solid guy, it'll put him on my radar a bit more to kind of keep an eye out to see how he progresses. As of right now, though, that wrestling background of John Castaneda, I have to go and put my money on that. So I'm going to be actually taking a shot on Castaneda as I put him on a parlay, but I expect him to win this one by decision. Next bout, oh boy, we've got Super Sodiq Yusuff versus the newcomer Don, or should I say shameless Don Shainis. The odds are minus 900 for Yusuff, as they should be. They should be higher. Plus 600 for Don Shainis. I watched tape on Don Shainis. I only watched. Let me go back. I did not watch much tape throughout this like past week. Again, it was my birthday weekend. I wanted to spend it doing enjoyable things. I didn't want to spend it all inside doing research on guys. So today, I'm like, I'm going to do all my research today. The first fight I watched was Don Shainis versus Bryce Picaud, who was a 9-7 guy. In 20 seconds of that fight, I knew Sodiq Yusuff was going to destroy this guy, Don Shainis. He's going to wreck him really bad. Don Shainis got rocked by a guy with a record of 9-7. He fought a guy who was 16, 104-0. He knocked out Cody Pfister. If you remember Cody Pfister, he's the guy that you might remember by having a girlfriend that's much too hot for him. That's the only thing I remember about him. He had a girlfriend much too hot for him. I don't know if they're married or if they split up. Maybe they did. But Cody the Fist Fister. Oh, God. Cody the Fist Fister. Yeah, Sodiq Yusuff, he's just going to be too good. That's it. That's literally it. He's just going to be too good. I think he's going to knock out Don Shainis. Don Shainis got rocked by a guy with a 9-7 record, a guy that would never see the UFC, and now he's fighting Super Sodiq Yusuff, guy who's been fighting top of the division. Took a round off of Arnold Allen in the third round. Like he just doesn't have it. If you want a more technical breakdown, I saw this guy throw a lead uppercut with his chin in the air. I can't. That was one fight ago. How long ago was that? 3 months ago. There's no possible way in hell that this guy is going to get good enough to survive Sodiq Yusuff. Only by the grace of Sodiq Yusuff himself will he survive this fight into a decision. If Sodiq wants to fight dumb, Don Chanis has power. He can knock a lot of people out, like anyone can. And Sodiq's chin is a little suspect itself, so there's a possibility there. But Sodiq isn't the kind of guy that's going to go out there blitzing. He's not the kind of guy who's like not intelligent. He's a very intelligent fighter. He's going to win this fight. I'm going to say round number 1 knockout. I just don't think Sheamus belongs in the UFC. I just don't see any favorable matchups for him either at 145 or at 155. So I'll go with Sodiq Yusuff by knockout first round. Next bout, we've got Hayoni Barcelos versus Trevin 5-Star Jones. Odds are -225 for Barcelos. Comeback on Jones is a +190. This one, to me, it's pretty simple. I got Barcelos to win this one by decision. Jones, he's pretty tough. If he can survive an onslaught from Timur Valiev, then that's not really saying much. Like the way Timur was teeing off on Trevin Jones was impressive, but Timur's kind of a pitter patter. He doesn't have a whole ton of power. Barcelos, on the other hand, he has a ton of power. He's excellent, right? Despite his 2 losses, Victor Henry and Timur Valiev, funny enough, I still to this day, to me, that is a TKO round number 2 for Hayoni Barcelos. Like Timur Valiev was completely out in that. I think he uppercutted him. He got on top of him, face down, started pounding his head in. Yeah, that to me was a TKO. But that Victor Henry fight, there were some concerning things from Barcelos, and then there were some positive things from Barcelos. Barcelos, to me, he took Victor Henry too lightly. I think a lot of people did, mostly by the ripped up tickets, like the mountain of ripped up tickets that I that I am assuming happened and were accumulated. Barcelos was not expected to lose to Victor Henry. So much so that I think Barcelos himself is like, I'm not losing to this guy. This guy doesn't belong in the ring with me. And he kind of fought that way. He tried to get him out there, try to get him out of there pretty quickly. He was landing very nicely. And then by the end of the first round, like Henry was kind of getting in his groove and then started landing a little cleaner on Barcelos, kind of even rocked Barcelos. I fully expect Hayoni Barcelos to win this fight. I don't see him getting knocked out. I see him taking Trevin Jones seriously because we know Trevin Jones has that death touch, which is annoying because to me, he's never really been that great of a fighter. His last 2 losses to Saeed Yacoub and to Habib Basharat. Saeed Yacoub finished him in I believe, the 3rd round with a guillotine choke, and that was on short notice. If Saeed Yacoub, oh my God, if he had him in the full camp, I think he would have finished him in the 1st round. And Basharat, like to me, I took Basharat to win. He cashed me out. No biggie, but to me, Basharat, I'll be honest, I wasn't too sold on him. As of late, I picked against him in his last fight, but he's a very solid guy. So losing to these 2 guys, it doesn't really bring Trevin Jones' stock all that down, right? Like it's just more so Trevin Jones' ability in there. Like he was making poor decisions. He wasn't grappling. At this point, all he has is that power in those hands to knock out Barcelos, which he's got a chance to, but Barcelo has him beat everywhere else in the grappling, in the boxing, in the speed, not the youth. I think, Jones is still 3 years younger. Even though he has a reach disadvantage, I still give the striking edge completely, even with the reach. I think Barcelos uses his reach a lot smarter. He's just overall better. The boxing pedigree and then the jiu-jitsu is his dad being a master, like 2-time black belt or whatever. He's going to win this fight. It just really depends on how he wants to do it. If he wants to keep it on the feet, I really do think he needs to mix it up. If he mixes things up well with Trevin Jones, I think he finishes him on the ground with ground and pound. So I'll go with Barcelos. I think because both men really need this fight, I think they might be a bit tentative. So I'm going to go by decision just to be safe, because anytime I'm like, I think Barcelos is going to knock him out, it tends to not go that way. But I'll go with Barcelos. Again, even though he lost to Victor Henry, he had his moments in there against a guy who had him just beat, right? Like he didn't give up. He was making decent enough reads. He really tried to knock out Victor Henry, but Henry was just too damn tough, which is kind of like, where the hell is Victor Henry? I want to see him fight again. Like the dude is legit. I just didn't think he was going to beat Barcelos that night, and he just overperformed. Maybe not even that. Maybe he just arrived in the UFC and made a big splash. I'll go with that instead because I don't want to shit on Victor Henry. Next bout, welterweight co-main event. We've got Randy Rude Boy Brown versus Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo. Currently, the odds are minus 300 for Randy Brown. Come back on Trinaldo plus 250. Off the bat, I am not touching this fight with Randy Brown. I'm not putting on any parlays. I don't care how good his game is. I don't care how more improved it's become. The height advantage, 6'3", with an 8-inch reach advantage over Masaranduba. I don't care. I really don't care. I am worried that Randy Brown is going to do something really stupid because he tends to do that. Like, I think, if we're being honest, Randy Brown has improved tremendously in his last few fights. Like, his last loss was against Luque. That's Luque, right? That's Luque at his best 2 years ago. Then he beats Alex Oliveira. He beats Jared Gooden, just primarily staying on the outside and picking him apart. And then he split decisions Chaos Williams in a fight that I thought Williams was going to just knock him the hell out. He found his rhythm in the second round. The first round, he got dropped by Williams, and then he kind of jabbed him up a little bit, kept them on the outside. But he was doing something that was pissing me off, where he kept ducking his head. He kept ducking his head super low, like incredibly low, too low, like knee level. And with Masaranduba, the guy's a legit veteran, 28-8. I don't care how old he is. He's 44 years old. This guy connects once. He's going to put you on my favorite street, Queer Street. And Randy Brown is known to make boneheaded decisions in the cage. Like, if he dips his head at all, like, Masaranduba might not even fear whatever's coming back from Randy Brown, right? Like, he's got the length, he's got power, but Masaranduba will move forward. His last few fights, he has fought long guys, Dwight Grant and Danny Roberts. Like, he finds a way to get in there, and he's a very crafty southpaw, which concerns me, right? Like, Randy Brown should win this fight. The odds say so. I really believe he should. I think he does. He wins it by decision, in my opinion. He just scares the hell out of me that Masaranduba's going to see that head dip. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to keep throwing punches, make Randy like comfortable in there. Like, ooh, I'm going to head dip all the time, duck my head and bob and weave and whatnot. And he's just going to continue to spam overhands, Francisco, that is. And then when he finds that tell, like he's going to feint a jab or something, he's going to throw the left head kick and knock out Randy Brown. That is my biggest concern with this one. Again, I'm going to predict Brown wins this one by a decision. He can even finish Francisco Trinaldo. He's a guy who's very difficult to finish, especially at welterweight. But damn, the little things that I saw in his last fight with Chaos Williams bothered the hell out of me, right? Like, he was playing in there a little bit too much. And the way he was dipping his head was like, dude, you get a guy that can head kick you, you are on your behind. So I'm going to stay away from it. But I do think I might put a little bit of money on Francisco, just more of like a pride thing. Like, if I'm right and he does finish him because Randy Brown did something, I want documentation saying that you can, S my D. But let's move on to the main event. Again, Randy Brown by decision. But main event, we've got Mackenzie Dern versus, I never noticed her nickname, Yan Xiaonan. Interesting. What are the odds? Minus 230 for Dern. I get that. And plus 190 for Xiaonan. In this particular bout, what I find so intriguing is the shortcomings of both fighters, right? Yan Xiaonan, she's an excellent striker, very good volume, very good movement. Like, even her, like, yeah, like that's perfect, right, to win a fight. Especially like with idiotic judges, they'll just hear those noises and be like, oh, she's winning the fight. Mackenzie Dern is a fantastic jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? She's a legit black belt. Like, in women's MMA, to have a black belt like Mackenzie Dern, and you'll see that too. You'll see it on the ground, right? You see submissions from certain ladies, and you're like, oh, that was nice. But when you see Mackenzie Dern submit people, you're like, wow, that's impressive. The way she can maneuver the bodies of her victims, the way she maneuvers her own body, her strength, that overhook that she had on Tisha Torres when she tried to pull guard. She kind of just jumped on her, and she eventually got her in a Kimura, and then she put her leg over the head. I'm like, wow, her strength in there. She's a very strong girl. She's got the power advantage, in my opinion. The striking advantage, not so much. I think Yan Xiaonan is Yan Xiaonan. I always get her confused for whatever reason, but I think Yan obviously has the straight punches, the cleaner punches, but if Mackenzie Dern lands one of her big booby bombs, if she gets the power from the boobies, if she lands it on Yan Xiaonan, she's going to put her down. Being that it's a 5-round fight, like I was thinking there's a lot of value on Yan at plus 190 in a 3-round fight, in a 5-round fight, which Mackenzie Dern has been in. And again, I don't like Mackenzie Dern striking. She bum rushes. She's not very clean. She's been working on it with Jason Perillo. But all she needs is one takedown, and you're in a hell of a lot of trouble. And Yan, obviously, her takedown defense is questionable. She's been training with Team Alpha Male. We saw what happened with her and the champion, Carla Esparza, and it didn't go well for her. If Mackenzie Dern gets on top of her, it's not going to go well for her. I don't see her surviving, whether it be in round number 1, round number 3, round number 4, round number 5. The thing about Mackenzie Dern is that if you want to take her to win the fight, I think getting her right now wouldn't hurt, right? Putting her on a poly minus 230. Getting her live, though, if, say, you are confident in Mackenzie Dern to get that submission either in round number 1, 2, 3, whenever. All she needs is one good takedown, takes the back. The thing about grapplers, like good grapplers, is that you're in danger with them no matter what, whether they have your back. At that point, they have multiple different submissions, whether it be the arm bar or the rear naked choke or whatever, whatever they want to take. She can submission you. She can transition into a leg lock, like any part of the body. Like if she takes you down, she gets a hold of your back, she gets a hold of your whatever. She'll pull guard. I don't know if Yan can create enough damage in those first few rounds without getting exhausted, because I do think Mackenzie Dern, despite her shortcomings, she's got a pretty solid chin. I think she can take punches well. And again, she's going to have the overall power advantage. Like her takedowns aren't great. Like that's been a big factor in why I don't like betting Mackenzie Dern in certain fights, because she can't really mix in proper takedowns, right? Like she's not a very good wrestler, but on the ground, whether it be from catching a kick and pushing her down or pulling guard or whatever, like all she needs to do is create that imbalance in Yan. And I think she can really capitalize because she's very aggressive moving forward. The problem with that is that if she moves forward too much and Yan catches her with something, flash knockdowns will happen. Maybe a finish can occur. I just think that Dern is the rightful favorite. I do fully believe she's going to win this fight by a submission. Like I like Yan. I like what she brings to the table, but she does slow down. In that fight with Marina Rodriguez, it was pretty controversial at the time. Like, oh, Yan won that fight, round number 1, round number 2. I rewatched it. I didn't score it, but it didn't seem so cut and dry to me that she won round number 1, round number 2. She definitely lost round number 3 because she slowed down a bit. And Mackenzie Dern, she did kind of slow down in that 3rd round, but she still kept moving forward. And 3rd round with Tisha Torres, another fight that was pretty controversial. Didn't really judge it, but I can see that one being more controversial than Yan versus Rodriguez. Overall, though, I feel more comfortable taking Mackenzie Dern, because if she does get on top of Yan Xiaonan, which I expect it to happen at least once, whether really early she takes her down, finishes her, or maybe even later in the rounds. But maybe live betting this one wouldn't be so bad, right? Like if you notice Yan kind of keeping distance and just keeping that cardio up by round number 3, if it gets to that far, maybe taking a small shot on her, depending on what the odds are, of course. But if it gets to the point where Mackenzie Dern is like in that, what I like to call the Dodgers spot, where the Dodgers are usually super big favorites, minus 300, minus two something. You don't really want to bet them that high. You wait until they're losing, right? Like whether it be by 1 run or 2 runs, because they have that ability to come back. And I've made quite a bit of money betting baseball that way, especially with the Dodgers. Like, hey, are you going to bet against the Yankees, who have like extremely hard firepower, right? They've got great guys that can hit the ball really far and they can get on base, which actually happened recently. Those bastards hit a grand slam to walk off the game at plus money. I was like, so there might be a chance here that Mackenzie Dern does the same. She could be losing 4 rounds, and the 5th round, Jason Perillo smacks the crap out of her and says, "Go out there and finish this girl." And then Yan, being slower at this point, gets taken down. She mounts her, either smothers her with her boobs, gets a tap, or she spins around because she's like ill yucky and gives up the neck, and we got a rear naked choke win for Mackenzie Dern last second of the round or whatever. So there's a chance for that, which I'm going to pay attention to that. Like I do think Mackenzie Dern is always live for a finish no matter what. So betting her as she's losing rounds, I'll take that shot. But for me, I'm going to say she beats Yan Xiaonan in round number 3. I think she gets a takedown early. Yan defends it. If Mackenzie's smart, just wear on her, grind her against the cage, try to take her down. Don't expend a whole ton of energy. Just keep her there. Eventually tire her out. That footwork's going to slow down. Jan's definitely going to be attacking the legs, so that's going to be a concern of mine if Mackenzie Dern starts slowing down herself because of the leg kicks. It's a fascinating fight, right? Like I think you can't go wrong picking either girl depending on what spot you want to take them in, right? If you want to take this to go over, I think it will go over for sure. I don't think Mackenzie's going to get a first-round sub, so potentially the over 2.5. I do think the fight really does get going where finishes might occur in the later rounds, so round number 3 and beyond. So I do expect this one to be fun while it lasts, but I'll go with Mackenzie Dern by round number 3 submission. If Yan can pull this off, which I fully do believe she can, it's going to be fascinating because I think it puts her right back into not necessarily possible title contention, but it'll leapfrog a lot of girls in that division after beating Mackenzie Dern, who's number 4, and Yan being number 7. Funny enough, this is the longest I've talked about a women's MMA fight in a long time. But I do find it to be quite fascinating, these two, like the striker versus grappler. And these are very good strikers and very good grapplers between the two. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. And let's see what possible parlays I have. Not really too confident overall on this card. There are a couple guys that I do believe are going to win. I got John Castaneda. I'll take Hayoni, Barcelos, Christophe, Jatko, and Mackenzie Dern. Who else is on here? I don't know about Sadiq Youssef. He's like minus 910 via my casino's online bookie. But those odds give me, or those fighters give me odds of plus 490. And I'm thinking maybe if I bet like $20, $20 gives me a little under $100. Not too confident overall in it. I might bet this one just for fun. Overall, I'm not seeing too many spots where I kind of feel confident in, other than like taking straight bets. I might do a couple prop bets or over-unders on these fights when they get released via my casino. But overall, I'm not too fully confident. Actually, Mike Davis. Let's see what we got with Mike Davis, John Castaneda, Barcelos. I'll put Grisham on there. Where did she go? So by adding Mike Davis and Maxine Grisham on that parlay, plus 712. So $20 will get me $142. I might do this one as well. I'm not certain yet. If you want to follow the dumb parlays that I do, follow me on the Instagram and on Twitter. Twitter, I like to post more dumb jokes than anything. But the link should be in the description below if you want to follow me there. But those have been my predictions and possible parlays for UFC Fight Night Dern versus Yan. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. And as always, as I leave you, Fudge Olberg.